So a while ago, I decided to make content on this coronavirus confusion that's going on and all the hidden stuff that's been around. And I started with a document that I still have, and I want to share some of the stuff that is still relevant. And I thought by now we wouldn't be involved in this depth that we are, but here we are still. So let's just get into this mess. So before we start, the reason why I want to continue to do this stuff is because I believe that we need to create awareness into what's actually happening out there, because us as spiritual people, we know that things are going to be okay. We base all our faith and our beliefs in that, things are just going to move smooth, and they are, don't get me wrong. But the problem is that that goal that we want to achieve is going to be far from where we are right now, as long as we as a collective consciousness do not create awareness. And I'll say it right off the bat, I'm not trying to convince you of anything, and I always say this. I'm just putting information out there that creates at least some sort of curiosity for people to start making their own opinions and creating conclusions as to what's actually happening, because we're all in this mess together. And the more we acquiesce into this, then the worse it's just going to be for the period that we have to wait for this. So like I said, I have some articles here, and I mean, it's all over the place, but I'm just doing my contribution here, and hopefully this helps to create some sort of awareness, because we all need to be doing this stuff if we want to take out this idea that we are sheep that are being played by the governments and everybody else involved. Because at this point, everybody should know that this is just a political move and not really a virology type of pandemic. So let's just get into the first couple of articles that I have here. And we're going to start with something that I think is relevant to talk about, because this is where a lot of the idea that we need to create a lockdown started. And it's the Imperial College of London, and I think I talked about this before. They created this computer model that is, it said basically that we were going to have hundreds of thousands of cases and thousands and thousands of deaths. And these people, again, if you haven't made the research or heard about it, the Imperial College of London takes funding from the Gates and Melinda Foundation. And they created, like I said, this computer model that said that hundreds of thousands of people alone in the UK were going to be infected, and that we need to create this lockdown. Well, this article is 2 months old. So in March 26th, they already admitted that it was going to be lower than 20,000. I mean, from 500,000 possible cases, they went down to 20,000. Now think about logically, They created 500,000 of volume, huge volume, created panic, fear, and created the measures, the lockdown, the quarantine, everything else. And then not even a month later or weeks later, they said, oh no, oops, we made a mistake. It's going to be less than that. Yet the measures have been even stronger. It's almost like they did the opposite that they should have done. They should have released the public into the freedom that we should have, but yet they created even more tighter measures for us to maintain there. So think about logically. This is the epicenter where most of this stuff started, with these computer models that Bill Gates even supported directly and indirectly. And it's all about creating these measures. So once again, without getting into conspiracy here, it's a logical thing to do. Just think about it. And from here, we can make decisions and say, okay, if these are the things that they're telling us that we should start doing, and they reverted back, then why not we reverting the lockdown, quarantine, all the restrictions and everything else? It just makes no sense. And this just draws into the reason why we're actually in this whole stuff, which is completely political. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but you know it at this point. Another article that I have is in Sweden. Sweden is one of those countries that they simply did not go into the lockdown. And, you know, as you can see here, the world stands still, only Sweden doesn't. And again, they had a couple of measures here, and you know, it's not like they're not doing anything, but they had no curfews. Their schools are open. They're not creating this ridiculous idea that we need to be in our houses 24/7 and not allowed to go out. So this just shows, just like Japan didn't go into a lockdown. Their cases are normal. There's nothing going on there. We're talking about a virus. We're not talking about something that has boundaries, has frontiers. It has no borders. A virus is supposed to just like nature, like air, the oxygen, the ozone layer. All of this stuff is natural stuff, right? So if it's actually spreading naturally, how come some countries, especially in Europe, like Sweden, and nothing's happening? There's a reason for that, because the virus is not what they are claiming it is, and that's very important to know. And people are not making these connections, which is, it baffles me. We're in May already, June almost, and this is the reaction that we're still having, and it's getting even worse. It's getting worse over time, and we are just, again, we're accepting this as normal because. And I'll explain this at the end of the video because it needs to be explained. I just get into the other one that I want to share, which is, again, the celebrities that I've talked about, politicians, just people. There's hundreds of them that have been infected. Yet countries that have very poor income, they have very lousy medical system. They have been not been getting hit at all. Yet all these celebrities, for some reason, they've been being hit by the coronavirus somehow. And you know how celebrities are in terms of health. They actually never disclose their health. They could be sick for years and they don't say anything. Now all of a sudden, all of them are saying this. Again, it's a political move. It's created to cause confusion, to cause fear, to cause anger, and to make people want to get into the bubble. And once again, the government is obviously designing this, or the governments. Actually, I should say the government, because we're talking about the deep state here, which is something that controls the global system in general. It's not one government. It's not the US. It's not the UK, Boris Johnson, Trump, whoever. They are not the ones doing this. They are the ones dealing with this stuff because they have people around them telling them what to do. They're puppets. They have always been puppets into this whole system. So that's another ignorance and darkness in our awareness, to believe that there are governments, to believe that there are presidents, that there are political figures that are doing this, you know, knowingly. They don't know. They are not allowed to know. They are only allowed to play the roles that they need to play, and that's it. So all of them are creating these measures because the fear that they're creating is to make you, if a year ago, or not even 6 months ago, I would have told you that the government was going to force you to be in your house. They were going to force you to wear a mask, as it is in New York right now. They're forcing you to use a mask to go and just buy groceries, to go to Walmart, to go whatever. And this all has to do with a virus. They're forcing you to do this because they want to take your liberties out, because they want to control you even more. This is more obvious than ever. So again, this is painting the picture, and it's showing a big thing. This is another one. Let's go into the actual state of the medical industry. Hospitals are closing. Nurses and health practitioners are being laid off. Nurses of all kinds. It's absurd. This is a hospital in Romania that closed, and this is old again. This is probably 2 months old. It is 2 months old, and it's still happening. So the question is, and once again, what's the point if we are in a pandemic and we're seeing hundreds of thousands of people dying and millions of cases? Why are we closing hospitals? Why are some of the medical facilities, like you see, have you seen that on internet? I mean, it's all over the place. They have people in the hospital just playing around, doing all kind of silly things because they have no patience. Where are the patients? Where are these numbers? Where is this coming from? Can we tie those in? If we watch mainstream media, then yes, it all shows a beautiful narrative or a terrible narrative, a fearful narrative. That's all they're doing. Yet the facts are out there. And I am baffled again to realize that people are not bringing this into the awareness that they need to claim. And I mean, we're seeing now some protesting. We're seeing people stand up, for their rights. There are people opening their business and getting fined because they're opening their business and they're not enforcing people to wear a mask or just because they're reopening. This is a dictatorship, a global dictatorship that is happening. Let's get to this is. And again, this goes back into the quarantine idea of being sedentary and just being in your house all day long. When we look at the effects of being a sedentary person, this kills more people than anything, than a virus. The coronavirus has already been said that it's not as lethal as they said. It's not even contagious as they said. This is all nonsense. And we are being bullshit around with the idea that we need to be in our houses to protect the elderly and to protect ourselves and to protect. Yet in places like New York, they are. And again, New York is probably one of the most depressing states and in the whole world right now because Governor Cuomo has been doing very questionable stuff, like allowing people who are infected, elderly people, into nursing homes, and they're not allowed to reject them. Yet the stores are allowed to reject healthy people without a face mask. But people who are infected with COVID-19 are allowed to go in to a nursing room or a nursing house. Why? Because this causes even more fear. This causes even more infections, cause even more death. And that's what they want. And we're going to tie this in with one more thing that I have after I talk about this, which is, again, and I'm going to read it from the document that I have because I think it's crucial. So this is what we see here is the whole world and being affected by the coronavirus. And I'm just going to read from the document that I have, and I quote: "Widely different infection and mortality rates betray political motives and defy known behavior of viruses. It is suspiciously convenient that the nations with the highest old age burdens, most underfunded pension plans, and highest median ages, despite also having the best medical services, standards of living, and sanitation, should have infinitely higher infection and death rates than poor nations with lousy medical systems and poor sanitation, but with young populations and no pension plans. COVID-19 behaves according to the different political objectives of nations and not according to the biological laws of pathogens." So if you look at this, and this is the worldneedles.info on the coronavirus, you can see that actually the countries that have these political systems are the one that are getting the most cases because it benefits them. It's benefiting them. So it's a political move. And again, it's just showing that countries like my country in Venezuela, they're in lockdown, they're quarantined, they can't get out of their houses, they need to wear face masks and all this stuff. Yet they only have, I think, and let's just go here so I can show you really quick, because it's laughable. It really is laughable. When we look at Venezuela, they've had 11 total deaths and a total of 1,327 cases. Yet they're in lockdown for all this time. And we know by now that this is all the virus that we know that exists as influenza or anything else, because they have been inflating the numbers. So again, it's incredible to see that the numbers are not adding up, that the geographical areas are affected. And just to leave you with a more amazing thing, I got this from Candace Owens in her Twitter, and this is, again, it's just showing how this coronavirus seems to be biased on political moves. Democrat states like New York, unfortunately, and it's such a disgrace, We have 23,000 cases, 10,000 cases in New York, in New Jersey, I'm sorry, Pennsylvania. These are all Democrat states, which have 51 million population, and there's 43,000 odds deaths. Republican states who are open, and this has nothing to do with the parties themselves. It just has to do with an agenda, and I'll explain that now. But yet, as you can see, they have what, 1/6, 1/7 of the deaths, and they have even more population. So what's going on here? Is this virus actually telling us that we, if you are a Democrat state, then you are more likely to get infected? Or if you're a Republican, then somehow you get some sort of healthy boundaries to you for the virus? Nonsense. This whole thing is a political movement. It's out there. It's obvious. It's an agenda. And that's what people are not seeing. That's what people are apparently just brushing off as it's not. And of course, you can find this in mainstream media. Some articles are coming out and saying, oh yeah, you know, there seems to be a bias on Democrat states because they did this and they did that. I mean, what's the point? Republican states are not putting all this Florida's open like you saw in the graph. All of them are open. These are closed. We're getting more people dead. What's going on? People need to start asking questions. And the reason why this is a whole agenda is because it's benefiting the Democrats right now. And I have nothing to do with Trump. I don't care about Trump. I don't care who wins. But it's obvious right now, if we see that somebody has an agenda with this COVID-19, I mean, if it was the opposite or the other way around, it would have been the same thing, you know? But people are not seeing this, that there is an agenda in the Democrats here in the US. And again, you know, some people think it's like, oh, we said it all along, Republicans are the best. Nonsense. Republicans were the ones that caused 9/11, or at least were in office when that happened. So people forget that too. Now Republicans are getting really excited about this whole thing. We know it's nonsense. It's the same people behind that use Democrats and Republicans as puppets. And right now the Democrats are the puppets right now. That's why Trump is getting all the attacks that he's getting. And again, this has nothing to do with supporting Trump, but not supporting the Democrats who are obviously behind this stuff. So again, you know, these are things that just makes sense when you see that every country that is imposing this lockdowns and this quarantines and everything else that's happening is because they want to create this fear mongering, this fear for your life. And of course, at the end, you always give your rights when you're afraid. 9/11 did the same thing. We gave up all our rights and freedoms when it came out to surveillance and to monitoring us because of terrorism. It was a terrible, terrible thing they did. And again, that was under the Republicans. So anybody watching and thinking that I'm a Republican or a Democrat or whatever, it makes no sense. Because it's the same people behind the deep state managing all this stuff. And right now, fortunately, they're not in power. The Democrats are not in power. And that's something that we, people who are behind the scenes and looking in the rabbit hole, should be grateful of and not trying to bash. Because for once, we're getting something on our side, but they're fighting hard. And this whole thing is happening because, once again, it has nothing to do with the Republicans or the Alliance or anything else that is trying to help us out. It has to do with us. We need to create the awareness. We need to create the consciousness that is required to transcend from this ridiculous idea that we're getting into. And we're giving away all our liberties. We are. But as long as we remain silent, as long as we remain compliant, and as long as we remain giving our freedoms away, we're going to be stuck with this. Again, I want to end this with saying that we do have a bright future. I mean, I obviously am an advocate of the ascension process, which is inevitable. It will happen. Whether I'm dead or alive, it will happen. Whether you are dead or alive, it's going to happen. It's a natural cycle of the universe and the galaxy itself, right now where we're going through. So this ascension process will happen. And it's bringing a beautiful transition. But we are not able to see this transition as long as we're dormant. People right now, I feel like, are waiting for, we just want to be open and go back to work and go back to, No, we want answers as to why these people are doing what they're doing. We need answers as to what else they have been doing, what else they have been hiding, what else they have been withholding from us. And we need to start doing this now, because otherwise we're just going to be stuck here in this infinite loop and things are going to get worse. People laugh. Today is the face masks that are being imposed, at least here in New York. Tomorrow is going to be the vaccines, which they're not going to develop in a safe manner. You know what they're doing with the vaccines. Everybody should know by now. And then they're going to start tracking us, and they're going to start monitoring us, and then they're going to enclose us even more. If you think this is laughable, if you think this is not going to happen, look where you are right now, because that's where we're heading. You're being secluded in one place. You're being told what to do, and you are being also rejected from some places to get your basic needs. And they will continue to do this until you open your eyes and start spreading this information. We all need to act, and it all starts with awareness. So with that, I'll leave you, and the next time I'll talk about other stuff that I have here, because we just need to bring this out and need to put this information for people to see. Again, this is a very sensitive topic at this point, but I'm really confused as to why we're still in this moment, and I hope that people are just going to start creating more awareness. Until then, I'll see you in the next video.